Well, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about Skybot Scheduler and Beyond SM37, which is the menu for SAP's CCMS scheduler. And what we're going to be talking about is how you can get some value from Skybot Scheduler along with your SAP implementation. So like I said, my name is Pat Cameron, and I've been with Help Systems. I passed the 15-year mark last month, so I was pretty excited about that. And for those of you, I see we have a number of customers out there that have been with us a while. I spent about 10 years working on the robot products, and then about 5 years ago moved over to the Skybot side of the business. So I've worked with a number of customers that are implementing Skybot Scheduler and SAP. So it's been a real learning curve for me. And I am joined today by Jan-Erik Lovely, who is a software engineer that works on Skybot and SAP. Welcome, Jan-Erik.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, and I have been with Help Systems, and last month I just passed the 10-year mark. So I'm just 5 years behind you.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yay. Yeah. 10 years, kind of a big deal here at Help Systems.
It is.
So your 10-year, you get to take a trip, so. Got any plans on where you're going?
We're thinking about Hawaii.
Perfect. That sounds fabulous.
But we'll see.
All right.
We'll see. But yeah, so I have, I started out here at Help Systems in tech support, and then made my move over to development, and that was in 2007. And then just after a couple of years, we started the Skybot project, and I've been with Skybot ever since.
And you've been on Skybot since the beginning, too, haven't you, Jan-Erik?
Since the beginning, yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, it's been kind of an exciting product for all of us that have been with Help Systems for a while, because Skybot Scheduler is kind of our newest scheduler and our favorite, I think, now. I don't know. I love working with Skybot.
Oh, yeah.
So enough of that rah-rah. So this is our agenda for today, and what we're going to be talking about is a couple things. Why would you want a scheduler besides the CCMS that comes along with SAP? So we'll talk about a few reasons why you may want to look at a third-party scheduler. Cross-system reactivity, what is that, and what does that bring to your schedule? What does that allow you to do? And we've got some examples of that. The other thing I think that we've learned since working in this distributed systems world is that there is a lot of file movement that seems to be going on. I don't care what the business or what the platform, there's a lot of moving of files from one server to another, FTP files coming in, going out, and so we do have a built-in file transfer function with Skybot, and we'll just show you how that works and how it might fit into a job flow that you've got. And then we're going to go online and take a look at Skybot Live. So, and I look at the agenda here, I think we've probably got about 10 minutes of slides to talk about, and then probably a 20 or 30-minute demonstration. If you do have any questions at any time, you can send them to us in a chat message over on the right-hand side of the screen. Just type your question into the box down near the bottom right and click the send button. And you can click, you can send your questions to all participants, or you can send them to the host and presenter, which would be Jan-Erik and myself. I am recording today's presentation. So if there is anyone at your company that might be interested in what we talk about today, I think you'll be, marketing will follow up with a link to the recording, as well as we've got a white paper that has to do with Skybot scheduling and SAP that we'll be sending to you. I think that's all of the housekeeping. So let's talk a little bit about why you would want to upgrade from CCMS. And I think, to me, just listening to customers that we work with that use SAP, many times they use other applications as well. And what they would like is a central scheduler, something that they can use with SAP and they can use with other applications that they have. We've got a lot of customers, it seems, that run SAP and Informatica. So Informatica must do a lot of pulling from various databases and moving those files again, and then running SAP jobs based on the completion of a job in some other application, maybe over on another server, something outside of SAP. So having that central view and that central control is a big advantage to customers. One of the other things that Skybot brings is the ability to have event-driven scheduling. And those types of events might be inside of SAP, or they might be something outside of SAP. Like I said, a job in another application. Many times those events are file changes, a file arrival, another process starting or ending. So with event-driven scheduling, you can schedule something to run based on the completion of an event or a step. And what we've seen customers be able to do is kind of compress the amount of time that it takes for their job schedules to run, because they don't have to time them or schedule it based on, the time that a previous step normally completes. They can just set them up one step after another, and they'll complete much more quickly. You'll also need a way to notify the help desk or whoever's providing support of delays or errors. So you want to be able to kind of monitor your job streams, make sure that there aren't any gaps, everything is running on time, and if there are any kind of delays, or maybe if a process kind of gets in some type of a loop and is running way over the time that it normally does, you want to be able to notify people of that. So you don't want to be surprised when you come in the morning and find out that something, your nightly job stream didn't finish because something got in a loop. You didn't get an error, but it ran a lot longer than it normally does and backed everything else up. With Skybot, we have a function that you can use to intercept SAP jobs that might be background processes or user-submitted jobs that maybe you want to run them later in the day. You don't want to run them during business hours. So what we can do is we can capture those jobs and intercept them using a function within SAP and a link to Skybot, and we'll show you that today as well, and so that you can kind of manage that and you have a little bit more control over your schedules and when things actually process. And then a third-party schedule typically will give you more start conditions than CCMS will do. You'll also have a transparency of your schedules across multiple servers and multiple platforms, and you can use a lot of different events for those start conditions. So this is the CCMS scheduler, or Computer Center Management System, and SAP is an example of a company and an application that ships a scheduler along with it, a built-in scheduler, and that is really a nice little feature. But typically what we've found is that these application schedulers are not as robust as some of the third-party schedulers. And this is just because the fact that SAP, they're experts in ERP, they're experts in finance systems, they're experts in manufacturing and human resources and those types of processes. So they're not really scheduling experts. And so what you might want to look at if you want a more robust scheduler is a third party. And this makes sense because SAP doesn't want to spend their time and their money building a scheduling tool. So what they'll do is they give you a basic scheduler, and so that you can schedule your SAP processes. But if you need something more robust, you might want to look outside. And there are a lot of applications that do that. Informatica has a built-in scheduler as well, but they don't talk to each other, CCMS and Informatica. So if you have a third party, then you can talk to both of those applications, and it keeps those schedules more transparent, gives you more control as well. We do have a white paper, like I said, which I believe Jan-Erik spent a lot of time and research doing, and what we have done is kind of compare the CCMS start conditions with an external scheduler, not necessarily Skybot, but other third-party schedulers that will give you some additional functionality in addition to what you have with CCMS. And so, like I said, I believe that we'll be sending out that white paper after today's session so that you can do a good comparison. So reactivity, what do we mean when we talk about cross-system reactivity? Again, this might be cross-application. It could be cross-system. There are a lot of different ways that you can set jobs up to react to one another, and a lot of different reasons of why you might want to. Event-driven schedules will absolutely increase productivity. They will also kind of compress the amount of time that it takes for your job streams to run. So what we have here is an example of an order process that somebody will place an order on my website and order some of my goods and software, actually. And what I want to happen when that order comes is I'm going to probably trigger 2 different job streams. One of those needs to happen very quickly. I want to send that order over to the distribution center. I want to create a pick list so that whatever that item is can get packaged up and onto a truck and out to the loading dock. So this needs to happen immediately, and we want this to happen as quickly as possible. You know, when I order something from Amazon, sometimes I get it the next day, which kind of is amazing to me. I suppose someday it'll be dropped on my doorstep by a drone, but how sweet will that be? So you want that piece to run immediately. And then you've got another piece that goes to your ERP system. And that is going to update your inventory, update your sales, and then send out some daily reports. But you might not want all of this to happen immediately. Put the information into the ERP system, update the inventory, but maybe these summary sales reports and inventory reports will come over after the close of business that day. So you want to have a lot of flexibility in those job streams when they run, what they react to. And that's going to eliminate the gaps or any delays that might occur if you've got a nice event-driven scheduler. And then the other thing I talked about is that file movement. Like I said, it just seems to be a huge deal today with all of our customers that I talk to. I'm always talking with them about FTPing files, monitoring for files that are coming in. As soon as that file comes in, I want to send it someplace else and get that processed. So what we've done with Skybot is we've included a built-in FTP function. We don't have an FTP server. You need to have an FTP server in the mix here, but we will allow you then to automate that file movement using SFTP, Secure FTP, or just regular FTP. And you don't have to write any scripts to do that. And I'll show you how you can, Skybot will automatically create some variables for you that will allow you to, again, make it even easier to move those files when you're doing those file transfers. Well, that's the talking that I'm going to do. So this is what we're going to take a look at Skybot, and I want to kind of show you quickly the user interface. And then we're going to take a look at the NetWeaver interface. We can schedule ABAP programs and process chains. We'll show you a couple of examples of those. Also the cross-system reactivity, where I've got some jobs that are reacting to other jobs as well as other file events. And I'll show you quickly the FTP function and how we can use notification. If we have time, we can do forecasting. So if you want to see what's scheduled over Thanksgiving, for example, what's scheduled over a holiday weekend, if I need to take a server down for maintenance, what's going to be affected by it. So we can build forecasts very easily that will show you what is scheduled to run, where and when it's scheduled. So I'm going to bring up Skybot. Now before I go on, if you would take your cursor and just bring it up to the top of the screen, then WebEx will drop down a box for you, a little dialog box, and if you just click on that chat icon, then it'll bring the chat window up in your on your screen, so that if you do have any questions that come up, you can go ahead and send those. I know WebEx always kind of hides that. I just want to make sure people know where it is. So this is our interface to Skybot. Skybot is, our user interface is browser-based, so you don't have to have any kind of a client installed on your PC. It is all secured. We have role-based security. We interface with Active Directory. So you can create a group there and map it over to Skybot and secure all of the options. Everything is done through drop-down menus. So here you can see all your history for various events. Here's where you can set up individual jobs or you can put your jobs in suites. That's an easy way to kind of schedule and organize your jobs. Most of our customers have a combination of individual and job suites. And what we have here now are a bunch of objects that you can create. Typically create them once and then use them multiple times with Skybot. And we've got them kind of divided up. We're going to take a look at all of the SAP objects today. Jan Erik's going to help me out with that piece of our demo today. But as you can see, you define servers. Here's where you would define your FTP servers. So if you're pushing or pulling files from outside of your network, that's not a problem with Skybot. Just define the FTP server, the host name or IP address, how you're going to authenticate to that server, the type of FTP, and then you can use that in jobs. We do have a web services request interface too, so if you've got a web services interface, we can manage that for you too. So not only can we schedule jobs with these third-party integrations, but any kind of a script, anything that runs on a command line, typically we can schedule. We'll take a look at a couple of our analysis tools today too. What we're looking at right now is one of our job flow diagrams. So I've got a bunch of SAP jobs, and if I click over here on this tab, here's a list of the SAP jobs that I've got, some of these in that job flow, and these jobs are all related. Now I like showing it with this job flow because I think it's a little bit easier to see, and it's easy to see the reactivity. Hopefully that's big enough. So what we're going to look at is how this reactive job stream runs. What triggers what? So we'll kind of go through it and take a look at each of the different pieces. Now what we have here are a number of different jobs, and they're on different servers, and they're running different applications actually. So Animal is our SAP server, and that's what this job is it's running, and we'll go on and take a look at it. As you can see here, it's got some monitors on it, and it's an unscheduled job. It doesn't have a time. I've got it, if I right-click on it, it'll show me all the different options that I've got. But just to show you the prerequisite, so my demo SAP job 2, here it is. This is the job that I'm working with. And what are the prerequisites for that? And so what I've got as a prerequisite is an event. It's a file event is what we call it. And I'm monitoring for new files to come into a directory. As soon as I see that new file, I want this job to run. So we can build these prerequisite job streams with whatever your requirements are. Let's say maybe I've got another job that runs in another application, and I want to add that as well. I can just, the way that I have it set up, this month-end job needs to complete and this file event needs to occur. But I can OR that as well. So I can have, if either of these events occurs, I want to run that next job. So it's easy to set up your prerequisites. And again, you want to make your jobs dependent on exactly what it is that needs to occur, because you don't want them to run too early, and you don't want to waste the time having them run later in the day if they can run earlier. Now, when this SAP job finishes, I run an Oracle job over on another server. So I've got a dependency set up here. I was having some, I was making some changes to my PC, and so when I was connecting to this SAP server, sometimes my jobs were failing. So the way I've got it set up is I didn't really care what happened to this while I was doing my testing. Whether it was canceled, completed, or failed, I wanted this next job to run. So again, you've got flexibility in exactly what type of a status are you reacting to. And then when we get down here further into this job stream, I trigger an Informatica job and then a database backup. And these are all, again, on different servers. This runs on my Animal server. This runs on an HS1017, which is another Windows server. And then this runs on our Skybot server. So it doesn't really matter where your jobs are running. They can, it's very easy as long as they're all in the Skybot network to just set up that reactivity one after another. So just to show you what this event is, so this file event triggers this whole process. And I'm going to just go and show you the setup of this quick. So Uther is the name of one of my FTP servers, actually. And so I've got this event set up as kind of a little file watcher. It wakes up every 5 seconds, and it looks for a new file to get added to this directory. This is a Linux server, so that's what this file directory is like a Linux server. I never know the name of the file because the date is appended to it every day, so I can use a wildcard in my file watcher. I want to make sure that the download is complete, so I wait to trigger this event until that file hasn't changed in 5 seconds. Then I know the whole file's there, everything is ready to go. So here's what happens when that event triggers every day. I'll just look at history real quick. So here's the file from this morning. It shows me the date and the time, and you can see them all listed out here. What Skybot does with this event data, anything that's in this column, is it creates a couple variables out of this, and I'll show you where we use that. So we know the file name, so we'll create a variable and populate it with the file name and the path, exactly where that file is. So then in my next step, so I've got my SAP job that's going to run next. Let's take a look at that. This is the server that it's running on. Now you can create various calendars, fiscal calendars, holiday calendars. We're just using the standard. But I'm going to go down here to the command line. And the first command that this job is doing, it's doing a file pull. So from my list of options that I've got here, we can do a file transfer. Here's our Informatica interface. Here are our SAP interfaces. When I do this pull, I just need to select from my list of defined FTP servers, am I pushing or pulling? And then here are the variables that Skybot creates automatically. So the remote file name is this data variable. And then the local file name, so I'm pulling it into a Windows server, and I'm just going to put it in the temp directory. So Skybot parses that file name out into separate variables. Do you want to replace the target if it already exists? Do you want to delete the source? And then the type of transfer that you want to do. So I can set that up very easily. And then the next step that I'm doing is SAP. So I've selected, to run an SAP NetWeaver job, and we'll just take a look at the detail for that. So we've got our server defined, and we're going to go through that in just a second. We've got the environment, what user is it going to run under. I'm going to say the default. And then I've got a jobs that I can select from a list. So everything is done with drop-down lists when you want to add commands to a Skybot job. All right, I'm going to pop down to this last job in the string and go into the command. Now again, this runs over on the animal server. It is unscheduled, but I could give it any type of a schedule that it would need. And if we take a look at the commands again, so it's running a task that's a script that's out there. It's also running an ABAP program, a JEL job. And what I'm going to add to this one is I'm going to insert a process chain right here. So I'm going to go add a NetWeaver process chain. I'll pick from our SAP system. I'll just use the system environment. And then we've got a list of process chains out there. And let's see, I've got the name of one. Because you've got hundreds of them, when you start typing, Skybot will go in and find the one that you want to run. And it will pull in the process chain name and then also the long description. It pulls that in automatically. So now in this one job, I can set up reactivity this way as well. So I'm going to run this task. When it completes, I'm going to run the JEL job, and then when it completes, I'm going to run the process chain. Now we've got options here. We want to make sure that they complete successfully before we go on to the next step. So what Skybot does is it reads the exit codes. So the exit code that comes back from an SAP job is a 0 if it's successful, but you can customize that, but we're all good with the 0. And then we do have other options here. So our default is if we get anything other than a 0, we're going to fail it. But we could add some retries in here as well. So if it was a timing issue, you could retry a number of times before you went and failed the job. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just run that process chain. And I'm going to have Jan Erik kind of help me out. So Over on my other server here, whoopsie, sorry. Here's where I've got access to my SAP server. And so this is the process chain that we're running. And here are all the steps that that chain does. And over here then is the log that gets created every time that process chain runs. If I go back to, I'm going to go back to this job and I'm going to just run it. But I'm just going to run this last command. I don't need to run the whole job. I don't know how long that takes, so I'm just going to run this last one. So I'll go ahead and say run job now. And there are a number of places I can look on history here. And we can see that that process chain is running. We can also see that a user submitted it. But if we go over here, if I refresh, all right, where's my refresh? Oh, did it complete already?
No, Pat, I think that's from a couple of days ago.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, this menu is a little quirky. If you right-click on your demo process chain and then do display logs,
display logs,
then it refreshes it. Yeah.
There it is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here we can see that these that are green have all completed, and this is our long-running step. So you can see within here that it runs when it's running as well. I think runs long means a minute, doesn't it?
Yeah, I believe that one runs about a minute.
All right, so we can come
back. Which is long in our testing world. That's a long period of time.
It is. A minute is a really long time. So if we go back to Skybot, we can see here that it's completed now. If we go back there and refresh, everything is completed and everything is green. And I think if we refresh that, we'll get rid of that little warning as well. And so now you can see the log either in SAP, or if we go back here to Skybot, we can download the log. Skybot will capture the logs. And here's what we are going to see in that log. So you'll see the date and the time, the name of the job, the agent that it's running on, and then here are here's the process chain. Here's the API to run those process chains. And what Skybot does is monitors each step. So if there was an error in one of these steps, it would error out there, and we would know where it failed, and it would send out notification. But we keep an eye on it, and here you can see the status, and then it's finished. And here's our 0. So makes it easy then as well to set up reactivity to that process chain, because the Skybot job is going to stay active until that entire chain is completed, and then I could add something on to this list as well. One more thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jan-Erik just to show you the notifications. So we do have job monitors, and this is where we would monitor for an overrun, an underrun, or a late start. So for this job, if it runs more than 30 minutes, I know there's a problem, and I'm going to send notification to the SAP support list. So you can create lists of email addresses, cell phone numbers, whoever you want to send messages to let them know that this job is running long. Or if you've got any SLAs and it needs to be completed by a certain time, you can set that time as well. And you can actually cancel the job if you want to do that. Same with an underrun. Needs a minimum amount of time to run, and then a late start. Because this job is waiting for that file, I need to know if that file doesn't come in, and if this job needs to start by 7. Again, we can send message to the help desk if it doesn't get started on time. And then the notification for a status. These are the different statuses that a job gets, and what we've got set up here is if that job completes normally, I want to send a notice to accounting. But if it fails, I want to send the notice to the support staff, and I can also email that job log. So here I can set to send the job log along, and it will send it as an attachment to that email. So that's kind of the big picture of how we can set up reactivity and use variables and process chains, but how do we run those NetWeaver jobs at all? So let's take a look at the setup that we need to do for SAP. So where shall we go first? To the system definition?
Yeah, let's go to system definitions.
All righty.
So one thing that's really nice about Skybot's interface with SAP is it does not require anything to be installed on the SAP system because we're using APIs that are provided by SAP. So all we need to do is figure out and enter in the information to make that connection to the SAP system. So here we're looking at a system definition within Skybot for an SAP system. And what we have defined here is one that is actually using one of the features of SAP, and the way you can connect is through a group server type selection or connection, and that is really a load balance connection. So what happens is, if you're familiar with this, the system goes out to the message server and says, I want a connection, and then the response comes back from SAP saying, okay, here's the server we want you to connect to this time, and that's the connection made. So what we've defined here is that we're connecting that way with this connection and anything that uses this for the connection. And we've defined which message server it's going to go to, and then also which group defined on the SAP system for that message server is going to be used, because there's different groups that could be defined there. And there's a little bit extra setup that you need to do to make that type of connection work, but we have that all defined in the help information for that. It's very minor. So Pat, if you would be so kind as to bring up the SAP GUI and the setup for making a connection to our SAP system. So here's the system entry properties in your regular SAP GUI. So when you're first setting this up in Skybot, you need that information, and here's where you'll find it if you don't know it off the top of your head. And so what you'll want is to get for making just a standard connection, you would just use the information that is defined in here for the application server, because that's the other type of connection you can make through a system definitions and a direct connection to a specific server. And so you would typically have that information defined in your SAP GUI system entry properties. And also if you're making a group type of connection, it'll have that information in there as well.
Yeah, I just did this yesterday.
Yeah, so it would be, yeah, it's pretty simple. So we're pulling that information out of there when we want to set up a system definition in SAP. So once we have that set up in Skybot and we have our system definition, the first thing when you first connect or make that definition is you're going to have some environment variables in there, and the ones you enter in the first time are going to be the default information. So Pat, if you could bring up, yep, that's right. So here, I'm sorry?
No, sorry about that, yep.
Oh, okay.
This is what we're looking at, right, the environment variables?
Right, yeah. So after we've defined the basic information for making the connection, then we put in what we call default system environment settings. So this will be the default environment. And once you've entered that information for client code, language, and username, and then whatever password you're going to have for that one, that will be the default, which you can always come back in here and make modifications to. But once you've set that, you're not limited to that, because we can also set up additional system environments which you can choose from when you're setting up different tasks that are going to be running in SAP. So it gives you some flexibility there.
Excellent.
And so what we want to show you right here as well, while we're in this area, in the system definition, is the setting for polling jobs on the system. So part of the API that SAP provides allows us to go out and pull the jobs that you would typically see in SM37 into Skybot. So what we do is have our own database table that we pull all those jobs into. Now, it can be quite a bit and quite a few at times, but that's okay because we're keeping just a minimal amount of information about each job. So what we have defined here and what you can define is to turn this on, for one thing, by enabling it, and then also how often is this polling gonna occur. So in our system, we have it set up to go out and poll for any changes or new jobs that show up in the history on SAP every 10 minutes.
Cool.
So Pat, if you could stay in that system definition area and then just either cancel out of that, and then we'll take a look at the different environments we have for that one. So so when you're looking at a system definition, if you right-click on it, then you can go to View Available Environments, and this is where you'll see that default one, which was set up already, and then you can also create additional ones. So here you can see how we've created additional system environments here for a different username in this case, but you could also have maybe a different client code or even a different language that is what will be used when you make that connection. Excellent. For that specific, so for whatever task. And we'll see that later on when we set up some commands.
All righty.
So now let's take a look at the job overview. So this is like our replacement for the SM37. So we're looking at all jobs that are on the SAP system using that polling system. So we're out there and polling and updating this information on every 10 minutes based on our settings. And one nice feature here is that when you're first setting up jobs to be run in Skybot instead of over on SAP, is that we can actually pull a job right into what we call a SAP job definition into Skybot from here. So Pat, if you would find our...
This the one?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. We'll jump to this and do this right here. And so here's a job that ran on the SAP system independently of Skybot, and it finished a couple of days ago. But we want this to be set up in Skybot. So we can just right-click on it, and there's various options there, but the one we're interested in is the Create Job Definition, because that's what we want to set up in Skybot so that we can use that within Skybot jobs. So here, when we've done this, we see it's pulled in the name of the job, and we can change that to whatever we want within Skybot. But also, you have to remember that that name that we put there is what's going to show up in SAP as well, in the SM37 listing. And then we put whatever description, whatever tags, and then you can see it's already pulled in. It knows which system that came from. It knows, it gives a default environment because we're not sure about that setting, but we just put the default. You can change that if you want. And then you can see it knew which class. It was different from a typical C class, so it pulled in that B. It also pulled in that it was a specific target server that should run on. It also pulled in a spool list recipient that had been entered for that job and a setting of copy for it as well. And then these settings below, these are our settings on our side, so those are just set to the defaults, which is start immediately. We do not have that set as a default, but if you needed, you could set any SAP job definition to require that the resources are available on the SAP system immediately when you want it to run, otherwise it would fail. But typically, jobs just get submitted to SAP, and then the SAP system determines when resources are available for them. And then also the wait for child jobs, our default is to select that because we we as part of Skybot, we want to monitor anything that is associated with that job and let you know when it has actually completed. So we have that turned on by default, but you can turn that off. And we'll show you how that is set in SAP, so you make sure that is turned on as well.
So hop over there?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hop over there and we can show. So if you're in the SAP system and you bring and run the init XBP2 program, it's going to bring some information up. And this is all in our help information as well within Skybot. So there's a few things you want to make sure are set or turn them on if you haven't for external scheduling to work. And one of them is when it comes to the wait for child jobs, is that parent-child functions. So here you can see we have it switched on, but if on your system it is not switched on, you would want to turn that on. So that allows that capability to monitor for any additional jobs that might have been spawned from the particular ABAP program that you ran, or more than one that you might have run through an SAP job definition in Skybot that turns out to be a job in SAP. So this is only available to external schedulers, so SAP by itself does not have that capability. A couple other settings we might as well look at while we're here is one is at the top to have that if you want to use our interception feature, you would want to activate that, and we're running at the 2.0 level, so you'd want to have that on. And then at the bottom is something new that has come after we've updated our system with more support packages, and that is the ability to get some better information from some error messages. So you'd see that in our logs once that is turned on in cases where something might not work.
Perfect.
So that's all you need to do right there.
Right, so that's for that. Oops.
So getting back to this job we're importing from SAP, you can now you can see the steps that it automatically pulled in. So those steps, it just had one step running a zvari program, which is a test one, and then a variant name in there as well. So it pulled that information in just from grabbing that from SAP system. So a very convenient way to start migrating jobs from setup on SAP to Skybot. So if you hit save on this, Pat, then we will see that this it'll pull you back to the job overview, but it actually, the job definition is actually saved in a different panel. If you bring that up,
right.
Pat,
Alrighty.
Job definition. Yeah.
Okay.
So job definitions are things that we have, or you as a user have specifically set up within Skybot. So this is not pulled over from SAP at all automatically. This is something that needs to be set up. But that one we just set up that Pat just did is listed now, and you can see all the information about it in this this panel. And then we also see one nice feature here is that it says scheduled in Skybot. That column says no. And as soon as that does get scheduled in Skybot, you'll see it as a yes. So it's a nice way to get a view of, okay, which jobs do I have covered? Do I have scheduled? And if they are not, maybe I should look at those because maybe I do need to schedule them, or maybe I don't even need to run them at all.
Right. And so you can kind of pull them all in when you know, as a process when you can do that, and then have them here, but maybe not scheduled in Skybot, but then, you know, as a project, decide when you want to move them over to Skybot and stop running them in SAP. So this is going to give you a nice idea of kind of where you're at with that project.
Right, yes. So Pat, if you would right-click, yeah, let's right-click on that and take a look at one more piece of information in there. If you go into edit that job definition, and then we'll go down to the step. And then I was going to show one of the additional features of that step that we have when you're entering a new job definition is the print parameters. So if you just click in that general area right below there, then it gives you the option to set up some print parameters as well for each individual step. So here we have a type ahead finder for the output device. So if you just start typing the name, you can find that, that output device and select it. And then there are various options in here as well that are similar to what you have when you go into SAP and set up a job there. But one of the nice features that External Scheduler and APIs provide is the ability to print immediately. So if you select that, it'll kick it off right away versus when it's in SAP by itself. I don't believe that capability is there.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
We can also add, do we want to add another step to this?
Sure, yeah, we can show that right
fun,
here.
I'll just show you that, so.
Might as well do
add
that
another
while we're
ABAP.
here.
Start typing the name.
Right. The more you type, the fewer will be in the list.
And then if it does have variants,
yeah, if it does, but if it doesn't, it tells you it doesn't. And then you can run, each step you can have a specific language. You can have a specific username if you want it to be different from what the system definition and environment combination is calling for. And then print parameters as well.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So now.
So now what we want to do is, let's get that one into a Skybot job.
Let's put it in this one. So we could create a new job, or we could add it to an existing job.
Right. So in this case, we'll add it to an existing one. And to add it, just select SAP NetWeaver job from the drop-down. Select your system definition, and once you do that, it automatically plugs in a system environment. So you can leave it as that if you want and just go find your job definition. And the job definition itself knows which system environment it belongs to, so it'll update that once it gets plugged in.
And I can move it in here too.
Right, so you could move that job around in there. So once you save that, Pat, we'll see if we go back to the SAP job definitions index page and refresh that. Now we'll see that scheduled in Skybot switches to a yes.
Yep.
And let's say it's 6 months ago that you did this and you don't remember which job it's running in. You can just right-click on it, do a where used.
I love where used. I love it on everything.
I know. I use it a lot.
See where it is. And we can go in and edit it here if we want.
Yeah, you can just go right in there and edit if you want. So a very nice feature.
It is nice.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to take a quick look at intercepted jobs?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that real quick. So let's take a look at the system definition first.
Gotcha.
And we'll go back to those settings in there because that's where this ties in. This is the first place you would go if you were going to want to use this feature. So one thing that we didn't talk about before was this intercepted job settings within a system definition. So this is where we say, okay, are we going to pull for intercepted jobs on the SAP system, and we can enable that here and determine an interval which we have set for every 5 minutes. And then this intercept criteria below is actually live data coming from the SAP system. So it's a direct connection to that listing in SAP. And what you're defining here is what is the criteria for jobs that are going to be intercepted. Just a blanket over interception that happens on the SAP system. So what that means is when you look at my listing in there, my Jan Erik user, intercept _ and client, what that means is if any job gets started on the SAP system that is from that user and has that beginning job name and client match, it will be intercepted and it won't run on the SAP system. So once this is entered here and saved, that gets transmitted over SAP and that's where it stays. And as long as interception is activated, on the SAP system. It'll intercept those jobs and won't allow them to run. And this is a feature that only works with external schedulers in the APIs, so that job will just stay there intercepted until there's activity from an external scheduler. So once we have activated that, now we can look at our intercepted job history. And you might not see this right away, but after a while, you'll start seeing some listings in there. So in our history, we can see that there is this intercept 1 job that has been intercepted earlier today, and that one runs on a regular basis. And you can see that there's a Skybot job name associated with it. And that means that we have defined a specific job in Skybot that is going to reschedule that release of that job. And we can see when it's going to be released, and that is at 1600. So the ones that ran earlier, because of our range, and we'll see this later when we look at the run intercept 1 job, it allowed it to run right away. So it got intercepted, but then it turned around just a couple of minutes later and released it right away. But these other ones have to wait until later in the day before they get released. But we also see another job that hasn't been matched up with a Skybot job yet. So it matches the intercept criteria that we defined for SAP, but it doesn't match anything in Skybot yet. So it just sits on the SAP system intercepted.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to run intercepted jobs.
All righty.
Yeah. And this is a convenient way to look at, these are Skybot jobs, but it's a different way to look at them because they are special and they run intercepted jobs. So if we look at that run intercept 1 right here, we can see that it's defined to allow the jobs that match the criteria that we've defined in this job to run between 1600 and 5 in the morning. So if they're in that range, they can go right away, but if they're outside that range, they have to wait till 1600 next time that rolls around. And we've put in some restricted days, so this time range only applies to what we've selected here, but if we didn't select anything, it would apply to every day.
So on the weekends, they'll run whenever?
It can run whenever, yep.
But Monday through Friday, we only want to run them after 4 and before 5 a.m., so not during business hours.
Right, exactly. And so here in our intercept criteria, this is where we can get more specific than the general one we've set for the SAP system. So here we're saying this particular job owner and client, when we find that one as intercepted, this is the scheduling we're going to do for it. And so that's all that's really needed in this job setup, this special kind of Skybot job, because you don't need any commands in it because it knows all it's doing is releasing that intercepted job.
Nice way to be able to control maybe a long-running job or something.
Right. And you do have the option to put commands in. You don't have to, but if you wanted to have a command, it'll run those commands first, and then it'll release the intercepted jobs.
Okay. So it runs this first, and then it runs those.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. So if you find an intercepted job, so let's go back to the intercept job history, Pat. And we had that intercept _2 job that we didn't have set up in Skybot yet. If you want to set it up in Skybot, just right-click and say Create Run Intercept Job, and now it'll plug in all of the information that matches that one exactly. And then you just need to define the time range and the restricted days. And if you wanted to, you could actually have a more general job name. So let's say you put intercept _ for the job name in the intercept criteria down below.
Oh, down here? Okay.
Then, yeah, if you put an asterisk there instead of the 2, what this will do is this will cover everything except for the intercept 1 job. So the more specific it is, that's the one that it takes first, and then the more general after that applies to these ones.
Brilliant. That is a nice feature to be able to control those long-running background jobs or whatever it is.
Right.
Very nice.
So that is interception in a nutshell.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that is kind of Skybot SAP in a nutshell as well. We've got 5 minutes till the top of the hour. If anyone has any questions, I haven't seen any come in. I don't know, Jan-Erik, if you've gotten any. Oh, here we go.
No, I don't see any.
Barry is asking, I'm currently using Robot Schedule. Will Skybot work in conjunction with Robot or replace Robot? Well, Skybot can work in conjunction with Robot. You can set up reactivity. So if you're running, you know, all of your IBMI jobs with Robot Schedule, we can, in this reactivity, so if I look at, I thought I had a IBMI job here, but I don't think I do. But if I look at prerequisites for any of these jobs, one of the options that I have is a Robot Schedule job. And so what you would do is you define your system that Robot is installed on. So this is my Avalon, I think, is the one that's live. So I've got 4 systems out there with Robot. And I can react to either a job, an individual job on Robot, or a group job completion. I'll just say job, and then it will bring me a list of all the Robot jobs that I've got out there. I wonder if I've got any called Pat. I do. And I want to react to completion. So you can react back and forth. You can do the same thing when a Robot job completes. You can set up a Skybot job as what we call a user job in reactivity, and then you can react back and forth that way. We do have an agent to run on an IBMI, so it kind of depends on how closely tied those schedules are. Most of the time, I think what we found is that reactivity seems to be just fine. You know, as soon as a file comes in on the IFS maybe, or a file on a FTP server, I want to trigger a Robot job to run, or I want to trigger a Skybot job to run. So it's worth a conversation, Barry, to talk about where you're going, how closely are they tied together, your, you know, maybe your Windows and your Linux schedules with your Robot schedules, to see the best way to go. But yep, again, lots of flexibility there. All right, anyone else? All right, well, thanks for joining us today. Like I said, we will be following up with you, and we'll send out a link to the session today, as well as a white paper that kind of compares Skybot, third-party scheduler, with CCMS. And if you have any questions, you feel free to email Jan-Erik or myself. Happy to get your questions answered. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully we'll be seeing you next time. I'll hang out here for a couple minutes in case anyone has any questions. Otherwise, you're free to go, and have a great day. See you next time. Thanks, Jan-Erik. That was awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pat.